All right, we are going to take this photograph and convert it to black and white and add a lighting effect filter. So let's double click on that. It's already been edited in Camera Raw. So I'm just going to hit Shift to open object. If you want to go directly into Photoshop, just double click and open your file in Photoshop. All right. So next thing we're going to do is add a black and white adjustment layer, I'm sorry. All right, second row, third one over. Or if you want a little more control, you can use a gradient map layer. And then click on the gradient to pick a more traditional black and white. Now I'm going to add another stop by clicking on the bottom here and dragging it along to lighten up the picture. I'm not going to worry too much. If you make an additional stop, you can just select it and drag it down if you don't want it. If you want to make another stop, you can click anywhere. Hit OK, and I'm good with that. So it doesn't have to be completely black and white unless you choose, and then it's just a traditional black and white filter. Now I'm going to make a filter and add a lighting effect, so I need to make a stamp visible first. Shift Command Option E, because I need this information and this information on one layer. Sound good so far? Now with layer 1 selected, I'm going to go to Filter, Convert for Smart Filters, and then Filter, Render Lighting Effects. And that opens up my lighting effect dialog box. So it will give you the last lights that you had on there by default. So let's just look at one light at a time. Okay, so we have a spotlight, which works very much like a spotlight would. You can move it around by selecting that inner circle. You can scale the size of it by using the outer circle and the little planet-looking things. If you want to increase the intensity, you can increase the intensity here. In this case, it's increasing the intensity. You can also drag it here, and there's a color applied to it. So you can play with the hotspot, make the hotspot smaller, or drag it to the right to increase the diameter of that hotspot. So this works very similar to kind of a spotlight that you might have in your room, like focusing on just one section. Okay, I'm gonna uncheck that one and add a point light. A point light, you can also play with the intensity. And actually it's changing. Let me try and reset this because it keeps jumping to something I'm hitting is. Okay, there you go. So let me go back just a step where I kept hitting and it was selecting a different light. The infinite light works a lot like the sun, right? You can't really change the sun, but you can change the intensity of the sun as you move toward the equator. And you can change the exposure. What I like to do with this is just move this around to change the direction. That's your infinite light. If you want to add a spotlight, you can add a spotlight up there. Again, the spotlight works in a much more traditional way. You can adjust the length and width of it and the intensity. You can also add a color, and then you could add a point light. So let's turn off the spotlight for now and work on the point light. I need you to only work on the one I would like you to work on. Thank you. Okay, so you can change the intensity. You can move it around. It's much more like a flashlight. You'll see the hot spot is grayed out because that's not one of the options that you have. You can, however, look more glossy or matte and more metallic or plastic. So you can kind of just play with those and see what you like best. If you want to add color, you can add color. So I think my favorite for this is the spotlight. But I want this to be right there. And I want to make it a little bit wider. There we go. And then hit OK. It's pretty obvious what we've done. So I always like to take down the effect a little bit with the opacity, or use a different blending mode. In that case, it just makes it darker than dark. Let's go to normal. Take down the opacity a little bit and select this layer mask. Grab the brush, maybe not a funky brush, and with the reduced opacity of brush, you can blend that in a little bit. So you can kind of play around with that a little bit. So you can see it allows you to change the lighting of the photograph. I think I may have oh, I don't have a sharp brush. I just have a really heavy hand when I use the Wacom. So there we go. Kind of blend that in a little. You can see it's got kind of a halo though, and if that's not what I want, then I need to get a much lighter brush. Or you can double click here to go back in and select the spotlight that you want. Maybe take the opacity down a little bit, or scale it like that so he doesn't have such an extreme fall off. That looks much better. Okay, and that's all you got to do is save that as a PSD and turn it in. And you can see that there are a lot of options, and you kind of just have to play with it. It does like to jump from light to light, so make sure that you are on the light that you want to be on.